All right. So now this is Oludo Alauda Equino, right? He is an actual slave. He was brought over to the states. Um, he then wrote a book. Well, he was brought over to the states, sold a few times. Then he was sold to a European, took him into Europe, and that man allowed him to write a book. The reason why is because that's the time period that they started to try to stop slavery, stop the slave trade, not slavery, but they wanted to try to stop the slave trade in Europe. In America, not so much. So when he got out of America, he was sold to a European. He went there, and things were kind of lighter. So they let him write a book. They used the book that he wrote to try to convince people to stop the slave trade. Okay, so that's the purpose of his book. But in his book, he describes what he went through. So we're just going to read from some excerpts from his book. This is from his own mouth. This is an African slave, one of the men who actually got picked up, and he remembered where he came from. He wasn't someone who got picked up and he died, and his son, had no connection to his roots. He got picked up. He remembered his time there, and he wrote a book about it. Nobody told us about this book. But watch what the man says. It says, interesting enough. We practiced circumcision like the Jews and made offerings and feasts onto the same occasions in the same manner as they did. Like them also, our children were named from some event, some circumstance, or fancied foreboding at the time of their birth. I have before remarked that the natives of this part of Africa are extremely cleanly. This necessary habit of decency was with us a part of religion, and therefore we had many purifications and washings. Indeed, almost as many as I always lose my spot. Almost as many and used on the same occasion, if my recollection does not fail me, as the Jews. Those that touched the dead at any time were obliged to wash and purify themselves before they could enter a dwelling house. Every woman, too, at certain times was forbidden to come into the dwelling house or touch any person or anything that we ate. I was so fond of my mother, I could not keep from her or avoid touching her at some of those periods, in consequence of which I was obliged to be kept out with her in a little house made for her for that purpose, till offering was made. Then we were purified. So that's exactly what we read in our law, right? He's describing it. He's just saying, based off of memory, yeah, it's just like the Jews. We did the same stuff. We circumcised and we had all this stuff. Is that a coincidence? Let's see. What's going on here? Hello? Did I go too far? Okay. Then here goes another one, same person. He says, all the nations and people I had hitherto passed through resembled our own in their manners, custom, and languages. So he said, so let me kind of fill the gap. So that was him describing in the first chapter, how he was raised. Then after that, he got taken as a slave in Africa, though. So one African grabbed him up, made him a slave, and then sold him. So he was bought. He kept on being bought by people just like him. Why do you think that may? He didn't describe it because I don't think he knows. But why do you think that may have happened? If somebody's selling a slave, we are the same people. According to our law, what would we do? We would redeem our brother, right? We had a law that we could redeem our brothers, right?
They did do that too.
Yeah.
When they came across and we became free here in our land, they redeemed them.
Right. So this is what we're looking at. He kept on being bought by his own people, right? He's telling. He's like, everywhere I went, they all resembled us. They spoke a similar language. They had the same customs. They was all cleanly, all the same stuff, right? So he said, this stuff. Everywhere I'm going, it's the same thing. He said, but I came at length to a country of inhabitants which differed from us, a people who did not circumcise, ate without washing their hands. Their women were not so modest as ours. I'm skipping some stuff. Above all, I was amazed to see no sacrifices or offerings. The people ornamented themselves with scars. Likewise, they filed their teeth very sharp. right? So this is how they painted us as slaves, right? They painted us. They made us believe that we were this people that he described. These people that they were not modest. They didn't clean, right? Didn't make offerings. All they did, they filed their teeth and put scars on themselves and did weird stuff, right? That's the Africans that they show us today, right? You see, it's not that they're lying. Those, according to him, those Africans did exist, but they didn't tell us about the other Africans, right? The ones that was actually taken as slaves. Notice these weren't taken as slaves. Watch what he says. Why is it not working? Watch what he says. He said, that part of Africa, known by the name of Guinea, right, to which the trade for slaves is carried on, extends along the coast 3,400 miles into the Senegal and Angola, right? And it has a variety of kingdoms. Why is it not working? There we go. Agriculture, he said, agriculture is our chief employment, and everyone, even the children and women, are engaged in it. Thus, we are all inhabitants of labor from our earliest years. Everyone contributes something to the common stock, as we are unacquainted with idleness. All right, so he said, we ain't lazy, we gets down, right? He says, we have no beggars. The benefits of such a mode of living are obvious. The West Indian planters preferred slaves from Benin and Igbo. So remember that Igbo. Benin and Igbo to those of any other part of Guinea, for their hardiness and their intelligence and integrity and zeal. So he's telling us there were other Africans, but they preferred the ones from these places. I wonder why. They're the Hebrews, right? They had customs, right? The other Africans, they didn't want the ones that file their teeth down and all that stuff, right? They said they wanted these. So a little bit about a story that I didn't put in here. He was taken captives from Hebrew to Hebrew. He kept on being redeemed by his own people. He doesn't describe it that way, but I know that because I know the law, what was going on. But he just describes it as he was bought, and he kept on marveling like, these people are just like me, and they treat me like family. They don't treat, like, he had slaves in his, he said, he actually has a excerpt in the book. I almost put it in here. He is like, the slaves that we had in no way are treated like the slaves that we had. He said, when we have slaves, we feed them. They're just like family, but they just can't eat with us. So they eat at a different place, but you know, everybody's working. It's not like we sit there and they work. We all take a portion of the work. Everybody works. Everybody's doing the same thing. So when he moved on, he was like, yeah, I was taking slaves, but he was like, they treat me even better than we treat slaves at home. I get to sit at the table. Like, they treat me like family, right? So he marveled at that. He thought that was special. Each place that he went, one place he tried to escape because he thought he was going to get in trouble. I think he killed like a chicken on an accident or something. And then one of the ladies was like, I'm gonna tell on you, this, that, and the other. And he was like, oh no. So he ran away, hid in the bush, and he was hiding out. And then they finally found him because he was starving. He didn't have no food. So they finally found him because they were looking for him. When they found him, the master, who was he's a Hebrew just like him, he just brought him in, and he was like, gave him something to eat, told him to lay down, told him everything was good. All right? And so that he was marveled because he was scared because he'd been taken away. He was young when this happened. It was like 11. Right, him and his sister got taken. Okay, so this is CNN. This is recent. This is from 2013, right? CNN. So you remember we said he said that they liked the slaves from Benin and Igbo. This is what he's saying. Igbo, Nigeria's Igbo Jews, lost tribe of Israel? Question mark. Remember, 2013. CNN's writing about this. They're not gonna connect us to it though. They don't say nothing about this is where the slaves got picked up from, even though this is basic knowledge and they know it. But they do go into some of it, right? So if we jump right here, from generation to generation, some Igbo have passed down various versions of migration stories framed around Jacob, a patriarch in Judaism. A popular version of the narrative holds that Gad, the seventh son of Jacob, and the three sons who settled in present-day southeastern Nigeria, which is predominantly inhabited by Igbo. All right? So this is an oral tradition already in the land of Africa. Right? We don't hear about none of this stuff. It says, when I grew up, this is a man from the Igbos. He says, when I grew up, I heard, like virtually every other Igbo here, that the Igbo people came from Israel. Then he goes on to say, where does it continue? His field of work in Nigeria, Chad, Niger, and Mali, and we'll go back to the map and we'll look at all those places, led him to conclude that the Igbo and the Jewish culture are not just similar but identical. Right? These are people that don't have a Bible, don't have any of those things. They don't even know who they are. Right? They just practice it by oral tradition. Right? In this latest book, whatever, draws parallels. We'll skip that. Down here, it says this gentleman from Jewish Studies, University of Basel, Switzerland. So this is a man in Switzerland. Is one of the foremost researchers on Jewish identification among the Igbo. He says that there has been a clear continuity of Jewish identity amongst the Igbo, and it quote, "It's not just something that happened yesterday," he says. So this is not just something that they came up with. They say, hey, I want to be something that the Americans will respect. He said, this is not something that happened yesterday. This is ancient, right? We never hear about this stuff. So this is Africa. This is North Africa here. This right here is the Iberian Peninsula. This is a little corner of Portugal, Spain. This is where they would have came down to. Fez is about in this area, right? So they would have came here, got kicked out. So they were held in contempt by all men. So they were driven down, and you see that the gentleman in the CNN article, he mentioned Chad, Niger, Mali, Nigeria, Ghana, right? So all this area. So this is where they were driven down into. If we go to this map, it's called Negro land, right? Right here. And then below that is called Guinea, right? And that's the same area that he said they liked the slaves from Guinea. Right? And then you have the kingdom of Benin right here. Right? The Igbo people were all in here. What does Igbo sound like?
No.
Hebrew. Right? But they're saying it, right? They're saying it in a different way. So it's Hebrew. The Igbo is what it is, but it's Hebrew, right? And it's just kind of a messed up way of kind of saying it. They have a few different ways. Another way that they say it is Ivwe, all right, the Ivwe. So the actual word Hebrew, the way we say it is Hebrew. That's how it's transliterated into English. If you look up the Hebrew word for it, it's actually Ivrit, right? But they say that it's pronounced wrong, that it actually should be pronounced Ivwe, something like that. I can't pronounce it either, but they say it's Ivwe, right? So that's why you remember Alan's wife, Alan's wife or Alan's married Alan's wife, Monique. Her dad is from Ghana, and that's why when I was talking to him, I was trying to get some information out of him because they know it. It's plain knowledge for them. It's just passed down. A lot of them don't acknowledge it. It doesn't really mean much to them, but it's plain knowledge from them. If you meet anybody from Ghana, meet anybody from Nigeria, South Nigeria, then just ask them plainly. Just say, yeah, are you from the Igbo people? You ever heard about you guys being descendants from the Israelites or anything like that? And then most of them will tell you because they've heard it. It's common around there from everybody I've talked to and everything I've seen. It's common around. It's just not something that we hear about.